All right, here we go. OverDrive, off and running. TSN 1050 on the TSN app, your home smart speaker, and up on TSN 4. Bryan Hayes, Jason Strudwick, and Jonas Siegel of The Athletic. Worlds are colliding here. Jonas, I don't know if you and Struddy, have you guys worked together before?
Oh, yeah.
You guys have worked before? Look at you two pros. I'm the new guy. You two have a great chemistry already, and I'm coming in, and I'm going to try to make this work for 3 hours. Good to see you guys.
Well, good to see you. Listen, speaking of chemistry, are you using shoe polish on your hair? Like, it looks quite a few shades darker than normal. Like, what's going on? Looks like a Lego hair my kids just put together last night.
I know, man. You're not the first to accuse, and I think that's an accusation. I think you're claiming or asking me if I'm starting to tint the salad. I'm not. It's the lighting in here. I'm glowing because the holidays have arrived. There's no other explanation. I don't know what else to tell you,
Jonas, how does it look close up, buddy? Come on, be honest.
It's distractingly great.
Is it great hair? Yeah. I think I'm feeling pretty good right now, and I think my hair's getting better as I get older.
You sound a little hoarse, though. Are you fighting through it?
I've been fighting through. I've been grinding for a few days, man.
A warrior.
I haven't been feeling good. I'm a warrior. This is my flu game. I feel like because yesterday I was horrible. I have to admit. Yeah, see, someone compared me online the other day to Jim Benning at the draft. Remember when he had.
Who was it? Was it Rudy Giuliani who had the dripping down his forehead?
Yeah, Giuliani. Like, I don't know why I look so angry in that one picture, too. I don't know who I was looking at. Probably Noodles or that could have been you, Jonas. I might have been staring at you at that point. But, I've been fighting him, man. I don't know. It's a busy time of year. Yeah. It's a busy, crazy time of year. And I'm staying up watching sporting events. My kids never sleep. They get up so early these days. And once you're up, and that's it, man. So this is my flu game. And like I said, I had an ugly show yesterday. I got off the air. I was like apologizing to the guys. I had no energy. Felt like we were off the rails all day. But that's not going to happen today because Struddy and Jonas are in here.
We're going to pick you up.
I love it. I love it. Well,
I love it, Jonas.
Listen, there's a lot to get into today, including the Leafs with a win last night. And that was Joseph Woll looked very, very comfortable, right? I wouldn't say it was the exact replicate of Anthony Stolarz in Jersey a week ago, but I think Dallas kind of overwhelmed them, and the Leafs found a way to capitalize when they had to, and Jake Ottinger gave up a couple of bad goals. Like the Robertson goal was not a good goal. The McMahon goal was not a good goal. Domi got it off quick, but he might want that one back. Yet that's the beauty of the sport of hockey, isn't it, Strud? Every once in a while, you're allowed to rely on your goaltender, and I think Joseph Woll did that last night, and then the big boys finally showed up, and the rest is history. The Leafs got a big 2 points down in Dallas last night.
Yeah, like it's okay to have your goalie win a game for you every now and then because that's what happened. And it more than anything, he bought them time to get themselves into this game. And the opposite was true of Jake Ottinger. I mean, Jake, he had a tough night. And it happens to everyone. Everyone has off nights. But unfortunately, I think the Leafs were there for the taking, especially early in the game. But Jake was just he wasn't quite at the level he needed to be. So one goalie beat the other. And then, that third line for the Leafs got going. That looks like a pretty quick, pretty fun line to watch. And more importantly, it'd be a hard team to play, or a hard threesome to play against because they're fast and they can be physical and all of them have some skill that can allow them to score like we saw last night.
Yeah, I mean, Jonas, you've been covering this team as closely as anyone for 15 years. When was the last time all three members of the third line scored in the same game?
Great question.
Like, I don't know if it's ever happened.
It's probably happened, but in the same game?
All in regulation, too. Like, Domi, McMahon, and Robertson.
When you contrast it with, like, for the first 22 games, Robertson has 2 goals. Domi doesn't have any goals. McMahon had scored a bit, but then like now they're like scoring and now they're threatening. I don't know. I just don't know what to make of how they're playing. Like Struddy's right. Like your goalie can win you a game. That's allowed. But when it's happening all the time, it's like, this is weird. Like they're playing a little differently lately.
They're playing with some fire in terms of it doesn't feel as if they're overwhelming their opponents very often. They have woken up halfway through games over the past 2 or 3 weeks and then taken over.
Yeah. Thanks mostly to their stars, not these last couple games.
Generally speaking, exactly. Yeah. Nylander snaps out of it, or Marner ends up with 3 assists and puts it on a tee for somebody, or Tavares with a hat trick. They've had that against inferior competition recently where they've played bad teams. They've just kind of been hanging around. It's a 1-1 game. Then all of a sudden it's 3-1 Leafs and it's over. And I don't know if that's the malaise of the season of December, because everything's going really well for the Leafs. Like they have 42 points. Mm-hmm. They're a legitimate contender for the President's Trophy. It's not just their own division. Like they're in a hunt right now. You got Buffalo tomorrow, the Islanders on Saturday, and then Winnipeg in town on Monday. And Winnipeg's been the pace car for that all season in terms of points, and they're currently leading the NHL in points. So those two worlds are going to collide on Monday, and the Leafs are going to have an opportunity maybe to go into the Christmas break right there, chasing top seed in the NHL. So I think there's more glass half full than there is glass half empty.
For sure.
Like you gotta. It's the same, I'm sure, with in Edmonton right now, Strud, where they lost to Florida the other night, and Skinner's had his ups and downs, and Bouchard can be in the firing line, I'm sure, from time to time. But they're in a pretty good place. The Oilers are in a pretty good place. The Leafs are in a pretty good place. It's a formality. They're going to figure it out. They're going to get to the playoffs. And they just have to make sure they're playing their best hockey once you get to April.
I guess if I was a Leafs fan, the thing I'd be looking at is that, did they really deserve to win that game last night? It's that the goalie helped them for sure, and probably was the reason they won the game, but they didn't necessarily all play well. So, what can happen is you have a game like that, then the next game, another shoe drops, and then you got a real problem. So, the Sabres coming into town, they've got a whole lot of things going on, but they're for whatever reason, sometimes going to play a team like Toronto or the Leafs in Toronto where there's a lot of hype and you don't want to be embarrassed. You don't want to lose that next game there, so they can get up for it more so than maybe the Leafs will. And then you lose that one, then you limp into the Christmas break. So, I'm sure that Craig is reminding them, like, hey guys, like let's get 100% back on track the way we want to be, because it could feel like they have played pretty well for a bit here. It could kind of fall off, and now you limp into the break.
You don't want to see that happen, and it sounds as if Matt Murray's going to get a start this weekend, which it's pretty wild that Joseph Woll and Matt Murray are about to be the Maple Leaf tandem. That's the Spider-Man.
Really?
But they're both known for their injuries, right? Being unpredictable in terms of, are they going to make it to puck drop? Will they get through the game? And yet this is their reality. And I do think it's a surprise considering where we were a year ago, where Matt Murray had season-ending surgery. He hasn't played since 2023 in the NHL. Mm-hmm. Like I think it was, is it November of 2023?
Yeah, I mean, he only just came back to the Marlies in the spring.
And I remember working July 1st and doing the Free Agent Frenzy show. And it just kind of came across the wire like, oh, by the way, the Leafs have signed Matt Murray. And we were over here and we were doing some bit, and then I heard it over here, and I'm like, wait a minute, what was that? Like, I got to come back to that. Like, I remember that vividly. We were doing like a Team Canada bit or something, and it slid in, oh, Matt Murray back to the Leafs. So I'm like, don't let that go. I got to get back to it. And I don't think we ever did, because it was such an inconsequential signing when you consider this, how much action happens on July 1st. But I was very surprised they brought him back. And I am very surprised that he's going to play. Like, I know what he's done in the past. He's won his cups and all that, but he has not been a very good goalie for years, and he's injured all the time. So why would
like
he
you have? What are the
Hildeby?
alternatives?
Well,
right?
play Hildeby. What's wrong with Hildeby? He's won multiple times this year.
Hasn't looked amazing.
What do you think Matt Murray?
And it's like a month. I don't know. Like Matt Murray,
exactly.
I think the perception of Matt Murray's time with the Leafs is a little skewed.
And in Ottawa prior to it.
No, but during he played 26 games, he was basically league average. He just was hurt a lot. That's the thing. If he can play, I think he can be fine.
Can he?
I don't know.
What? I'm just being a realist here.
To be I don't know.
I think he's more of a future piece than Matt Murray is.
They
in terms
only
of where
were
this team
down
is going.
2-0 in that Buffalo game because of Hildeby. No?
Okay. And then did anything else get past him?
Okay.
And what about the game?
Have you seen Buffalo?
What about the game in Jersey night 2 of the year? They won 4-1, I think. He played really well that night.
Yeah, okay.
I'm just saying, it's not like Matt Murray's going to come in here and
if I was the organization, you probably agree with me because Hayes is out to lunch. You'd rather have the experienced goalie beside the other goalie who's barely played in the NHL, for a month, maybe 6 weeks. I mean, maybe we'll see what happens with the injuries.
Yeah.
Those guys, but no.
All right, Strud, go ahead.
No, this is my thing. I do think that health is a big skill right? And there's some people, once you get injured, you just start, it just perpetually seems to go off. And, we've seen it with Demko in Vancouver, other netminders, even players where just the injuries start happening. And I, for one, always valued guys that could play. I'm not talking about blocking a shot and breaking your hand. I'm talking about, groins, hip flexors, all those types of things that they're continually out and have injuries. So I understand what they're trying to do, but is there a future with Murray for the Leafs more so than
no? Of course not. I mean, that definitively, Jonas. Like, who has more of a future with this team, Matt Murray or Dennis Hildeby? Dennis Hildeby, of course.
But for this season, maybe it's Murray.
And the reasoning may be we want Hildeby to play, so we want him to get back to the Marlies so we can get some
He's
starts.
not had the best year with the Marlies. So
right, and Murray's been hurt for a good chunk of the year as well. So there's nothing to go on in terms of his history. I'm surprised you're such a Matt Murray booster.
I just look at the alternative, and if I was them, I would be more comfortable having Matt Murray than I would be Hildeby.
I wouldn't. I mean, I'm saying that definitively. I would
just because of the injuries, or just because
in large part, like the whole mojo of the injuries and the history, and you've got Joseph Wall, who the biggest pillar he has to overcome is injuries and being concerned about injuries. And I'm sorry. That's what Matt Murray represents. Not two-time Cup winner anymore. It's more the guy's he's always seems to be hurt, including last year where he had a really significant injury to the point where he had a significant surgery in rehab, and now he's going to be playing games for the Leafs. I would have stuck with Hildeby. They've decided to go with Murray. I do. It's not going to be the end of the world because when Stolarz returns, he's going to play, clearly. But
it's not an insignificant chunk of time.
It's a large chunk of time. And listen, if Murray comes up, doesn't play well, they can send him down and Hildeby's going to come up. We're talking about the backup goalie here. We're talking about the third and fourth stringers. It's not a make or break conversation. I don't quite understand why he has to come up now and Hildeby has to go down.
That's why they signed him, to be their 3.
Well, what? Yeah, I don't care. I don't want to get into a whole third and fourth goalie conversation in the first block. It doesn't really matter enough. It doesn't matter enough. No. It's an insignificant conversation.
Matter.
It could, and again, the Leafs will have to figure that out and play their way through it. And if he doesn't play well, or if he gets hurt again, then they're possibly in a bind. Yet, again, if he gets hurt, Hildeby comes up. Stolarz will return at some point. Anyway, that top line, we discussed that a lot. I guess they played okay last night. What'd you make of Matthews and Marner and Nylander? Did you see it, Strud? I mean, there was the richest line in the history of the NHL was put together last night. And that's a fact. Those guys are making like $35 million cash, each of them combined. So where do we stand on that?
So this is what I think. When you put 3 players that good together, unfortunately, there's only one puck out there. And I would like them all to have the puck more often on their stick if possible. And I'm not suggesting any one of them is a puck hog or anything like that, but I think I'd rather have them on different lines so there's more opportunity for those guys to spend more time with the puck on their stick. And rather than maybe watching someone else or trying to get open. So I don't really know. Maybe Craig's just trying to shake it up, but I just think you want to have guys, I think spreading them out gives them a chance to have the puck, Jonas, more often on their individual stick. I don't want Marner just forechecking or just watching the other two, or vice versa with Nylander and the big guy, Matthews.
I mean, there's like 100% validity to that. It's a great point. That's why it's barely happened. Like, it's happened like a handful of times. Maybe not even a handful of times. I think it's like 2 games before last night. And yet, and I think that's right. Like, it looked a little weird. Like, Marner didn't have the puck as much as
I found that
would.
Marner was the third, the odd man out of the 3,
which is not ideal because he's obviously great with the puck. But why can't they just see it for a little bit? Like, why not? Like, what? I don't know.
Why not put Matt Murray at center tomorrow night?
Look at you.
But what does that mean? Like,
I just don't give it. Why not? Like, what? Let's just see. Give it 5 games. Give it 3 games. Like, what is the downside? We know the other stuff. We've seen the other stuff. Like, thousands of times.
Yeah, go ahead, Strud.
Would you want this line to start the first round of playoffs?
No.
Is this something you think would work in the playoffs?
I don't know. I mean, we've barely seen it. Probably not for the reasons you're talking about. But maybe it's something
work as a group.
Yeah, but maybe it's something.
Would you want to work for the team?
Would I want it to work for the team? Like,
is this something you think you'd want? It's important for the team to have those 3 guys on one line in a playoffs, or would you rather see them spread out?
I think it's a conceivable option that they could go to in a playoff series, which they never have. Like maybe you give it some run like I'm talking about, and it's like, that some chemistry develops. And let's say it's game 2, and it's like, man, they haven't scored at all in this series. Let's go to that. And instead of it being like, they played together one shift, it's like they've actually played together a bit. They have a little bit of familiarity at 5-on-5.
These guys have been teammates for 9 years.
They barely ever played 5-on-5.
I understand that, but if they don't know the P's and Q's of each other's games,
5-on-5 is not power play.
Yeah. You know, Jonas, that's a well thought out response. I
There we
agree with
go.
you because, and I challenged you and you answered. This is what I'm saying. You're talking about a nuclear option like McDavid and Draisaitl
exactly.
when they put them together. And I'm glad you got there. Hayes wasn't close. Hayes is still seeing if his hair's dark enough. You nailed it. So I guess if you want to put that together every now and then, and you're right, it has to be more than, 2 seconds, put it together, make sure it can work, and then you want to change a series, then by all means, yes. But I still think any team is better when you spread out that many people because I want them having the puck on their stick as much as possible. But I totally understand and agree with you. Jonas, you're on fire today.
There you go,
absolutely
Jonas.
on
Great
fire.
start. Great
And
start.
what can you say to this? Now, Hayes disagreed with this the other day, but I think he's probably right. But like other teams have done this. This is not like something you can't do. Landeskog, McKinnon, Rantanen. You mentioned McDavid and Draisaitl play together all the time. Marchand, Bergeron, Pasternak.
But what was my reasoning
Your
of why
reasoning
this is
was
different?
sound, very sound.
It's because those
Their
players
skill sets are too overlapping.
They have completely different ingredients.
Okay.
Like Gabriel Landeskog, none of these 3 Leafs play anything like him. Not even close to the way he plays. Brad Marchand, who is the Brad Marchand on this line? Like nobody it plays like him.
No.
And that's the point. Is the 3 of them are all like uber skilled.
They have tried
checking players.
We've seen them do it the other way. Playoff.
Yeah.
They don't score. Maybe
It might be
find
worth it at
something
that
that's
point.
like, let's go to this in the middle of a series. It works. I mean, another example from the not so distant past, Kane and Taves. That was like their breaking case of emergency option. I don't know.
Yeah, no, listen, I understand that, but that again, I can give you countless examples of 2 players playing together and doing
we've
that.
seen
Like
it here.
the nuclear, exactly. They play all the time together.
I know.
Like the nuclear option is Draisaitl with McDavid.
Yes.
It's not a third guy that's included in that.
Well, Hyman.
Yes, but Hyman has a
Used to be a Leaf.
very set role though. Like again, it's
Right,
it's
fair.
a very defined role. He's not saying, Connor, I will drive play, you go to the corner.
Right.
Like there's role definition there. With these 3, there's not. Like none of them are crashers or bangers. None of them live around the net. None of them, are looking to be F1 on a forecheck. They don't live in that world. They never have. So
they like to have the puck on their stick.
yeah,
all 3 of them.
exactly.
I guess it's like
I'm very intrigued by it. I found it entertaining last night. I found it interesting that Willie scored 2. Now he's up to 20. Both of the goals were great plays by Matthews and Tavares, like to put him, in a position to score. The last one was an empty netter, but brilliant play by Tavares. Effort play, makes the play. Matthews draws in both defenders and sauces one to him, and he goes shelve. Like those are showing the talents, I think, of Tavares and Matthews as much as it would with Nylander. But again, I thought the line was fine. I think over time you don't want the imbalance over the rest of the lineup. I think that's another thing we got to be careful with here. Good for Domi, McMahon, and Robertson. Awesome the last couple of games. I'll believe it when I see it 10 games from now.
Yeah, fair.
Right? They're not out of the doghouse. Domi, I think, will have a good second half, just like he did last year. Nick Robertson still has to continue to prove he's an NHL player. Like, he's got to keep proving that. And so, again, for the middle part of the season in December, throw a bone to the fan base. It's fun. It's cool. Go ahead. Play it this weekend. We'll see. But I think we all know what the answer is going to be. They're not going to do it over a 60-minute game in the playoffs. Could it be a nuclear option, like you said, a shift or 2? Sure. But Sheldon Keefe used to do that from time to time.
He did. What's the Jerry's percentage on them playing a playoff game together?
Like, we're talking every single shift.
Every single shift.
Like, they're up on the whiteboard, and that's how it's going to go. I think it's 0%.
That's an asinine comment.
I think it's 0%.
Zero.
Yes.
Gold.
Go ahead. You guys can give your percentage on that.
This would be my concern, is that behind them, there's the talent drops off quickly. And that happens on most every team.
Every
you
team
put
would
a
have
nuclear
that.
line together. But if you feel that those 3 guys can absolutely dominate any other top line that you're playing against, then I'd probably put it together. So I have it higher. I think that if he's trying it now, it means he's at least thinking about it. So 0 seems wildly wildly low. But I'll go like 40%, guys.
Whoa.
40%.
Wow.
That's a more ridiculous answer than me saying
He's
zero.
thinking about it. He's thinking about it. It's on his mind, right?
He's thinking about it because, again, I think he wants to keep the other lines intact, which is a part of it. He maybe wants to spark the three of them and make sure that, okay, you're leaders. You need to prove you can play my system, my style. I don't know. I mean, he hasn't really given an exact reasoning as to why he's
more
doing
of like a hunch kind of coach.
Berube is.
Yes.
Yeah. Which I appreciate that.
Yeah.
I like
What's
a
your
riverboat
percentage?
gambler.
Jonas,
I like
what
that.
do you got, buddy?
Well, yeah, where's
I'll
your
say
Jerry's
like
on this?
9%.
9?
9%. So I'm
You
outlandish.
thought 0 was low?
Well, 0 is like there's no chance.
9?
That's
I'm
crazy.
saying I think there's a 0% chance
that
they
any
show
game
up
in the playoffs.
before the game, and Mike Ross calls out the starting lineup, and it's Matthews, Marner, and Nylander, and they stay intact for every single shift of that game.
I'm going to quote Jeff
I think it's
O'Neill.
0%.
That might be the stupidest thing you've ever said on this show.
Listen, I've said a lot of dumb things. That one,
0.
I think, is a well-informed.
You know what
0.
could happen? Just what I'm talking about. Mid-game, Game 3 against the Panthers.
Mid-game, though.
They go to it. It works.
Mid-game.
And he's like, Game 4, I'm sticking with it. Why the hell wouldn't I?
Okay. And then in Game 4, they're down 2-0 after the first period. He goes, I can't keep
That's the thing. It didn't look amazing. Like, they gave up the first 2 goals. They kind of looked out of sorts. I guess you're saying
9%.
basically, like,
Yeah,
have you ever seen the movie Ocean's 11, Hayes?
Yes, I've seen it.
You just don't like a lot of big stars in the same movie together. Like, you need character actors, is what you're saying.
Yeah, it's too much. You can't have Matt Damon playing like a kind of the 7th or 8th role in the lineup.
Pretty good
You know
movie,
what I mean?
but-
Yeah, it's not bad.
9%? Like, you don't even stand by your comment, Jonas. Like,
I know,
9%. I said you had a good day. You just came back to ground level, but
Exactly.
Well, because
Now
what you
you're
said
back to
is
the starting
what
line.
you said before is true. Like it doesn't totally conceptually make sense, but 0% of it ever happening in a game this spring is just crazy.
But 9%. Like, if you came home with 9% in Chem 30, would your parents have been happier than
I know.
0? Barely happier, right?
9%.
I was
least
going to say
40.
15, but like 40 is like almost 50-50.
Yeah.
40 is
Because-
that's an ayahuasca take. Like you
'Cause
need a
he's
drug
thinking.
test. It's
He's
not
thinking
40.
about it. He's thinking about it. Guys, I tell you, I think he might try it in the playoffs.
Listen,
if things aren't going well.
It's the holiday season. He's feeling very, merry and jolly. Yeah. I mean, why not play the three of them together? I'd like to see it on a home. I'd like to see it at home. Like they're in Buffalo tomorrow, right?
Correct.
And then at home to the Islanders on Saturday. Throw the home fans, give them that present on Saturday. That's what I'd like to see.
So who's the lineup they're going against on Saturday? The Islanders?
Yes.
So who's their top line? Like, is that a line that you're like, you should be able to contain?
I mean,
beat?
you're talking.
100%.
Yeah, absolutely. We're
We're going to overwhelm them.
For
We're
sure
gonna-
you can.
And
You
that's
can-
the thought process.
You
right?
can overwhelm the Sabres and the Islanders without question. Now, Monday,
Jets. Yeah,
the Jets are in town. If Hellebuck's in net and they're ready to play, that could be a bit of a different story. I will say this. I could adjust my Jerry's percentage after the game on Monday if they stick together for 3 more.
I mean, what's the percentage that they stick together that
but
long?
that's the whole point.
it's
Exactly.
pretty low.
But, it's one game in December and a practice and all that. So Willie hit 20 last night, and you had a sit-down with William Nylander up on The Athletic. Did he actually say his goal is 40?
No. He says goals 50.
Okay, because I was told, I didn't get to read the whole article, and I was told that he said 40. I'm like, how could he say 40 again?
No, he's
He's already done 40, and he already has
There's
20
a typo
through.
in the story. No, it's 50.
Okay, all right. That's what I figured, because I was going to get to a Strutter Dud on this. We'll come back. We'll fire up the oven. Strutter Dud is coming up, and a part of it is going to be, can he hit 50? Not even this season necessarily, at any point in his career, because he is scoring at a very elite level this year, last year, although he's probably on about the same pace he was last year, and we know what happened.
He's a little
Slow
ahead
down.
of it.
Yeah, well, I guess from a points perspective, he's probably a bit behind it, but
He is,
goals,
yeah.
he's a little bit ahead of it.
Correct.
So Strutter Dud coming up on that and more. Jason Strudwick's in here. Jonas Siegel of The Athletic. We've got my list coming up just after 6. Luke Wilson will be in here. The Thursday nighter tonight, Chargers Broncos. The line is down to 2.5 now. Chargers laying 2.5 on FanDuel. Al's brother will be in here, Hazenbro, with the pick. What a massive way to start Week 16. We have so many games to get to today and tomorrow. They play Saturday. There's Sunday games, Monday games. It's going to be a ton of NFL action between now and the end of the year. So Luke and Al's brother still to come. and Craig Button on the World Juniors, starting their pre-tournament schedule tonight. So we'll catch up with Craig and get his take on the tournament, among other things, throughout the NHL. Overdrive continues, TSN 1050, and on the TSN app. All right, Overdrive continues, brought to you by FanDuel, bringing you everything from the opening line to the final score. Bryan Hayes, Jason Strudwick, Jonas Siegel of The Athletic. Got Pierre LeBrun coming up in about a half an hour. All of a sudden, some trades in the NHL last night. It kind of came out of nowhere. I wasn't surprised Kaapo Kakko got traded, and he goes to Seattle. Young defenseman going back to New York in a pick. But William Carrier out of nowhere being traded for Justin Barron. And Carrier's a French-Canadian Alex Carrier going back to Montreal. Right shot defenseman, on term, pretty good defensive defenseman. I guess that's what, Barry Trotz deciding I got to move money?
I think what he said is they wanted to get a younger defenseman and try to develop him, basically. Barron's 23. Carrier is 28.
Yeah, I guess. It seems like just a change for the sake of change, but still, we were talking about yesterday. Our deal's going to happen here before the freeze, and then all of a sudden they happen, and there's still people wondering what could take place in Vancouver. Are they going to make moves? Because Jim Rutherford has been kind of indicating that they might be looking at certain things, and when Rutherford says that, generally it happens. I think the Leafs are probably in on the market. I'm not anticipating anything's going to happen anytime soon with Toronto, but at some point they're going to make a deal. And it feels like they're putting their cards on the table, like it's a third line center that they're looking for.
Yeah, I mean, you look at Nashville, I think that their heads must be just reeling, right? They're trying to figure out what is happening or what's not happening, more importantly. They look at the Rangers. I mean, Kakko and Trouba were two of the players that were kind of highlighted by whether it was the team or the GM or the fans or the media, that they were part of the reason this team's struggling. Well, those guys are gone now. So what's next? Where do you go from here? And can that team kind of get going? They're not that far out of a playoff spot, but a team that you feel, last year had such a good year, you're changing things up, but they really haven't done a lot. And I don't mean that to be mean, but they haven't won really a lot of anything with that group they have there, and that group is aging now. So maybe Drew is trying to change it on the fly and add some pieces or subtract pieces. It looks like more right now than anything.
Yeah, and you wonder how much more they're going to have to do. Like if it keeps going south.
I just, if I was a Rangers fan, I'd be like, that's what you got back from the second overall pick in the draft?
Yeah, but
I know he's not.
You got to move past that.
Do you?
Yeah,
yes, you do. He's been in the league for 6 years, Jonas.
Yeah, but he's still 23.
I understand that, but he's
that's gone.
I think so. What is the statute of limitations on?
That's a good question.
Jonathan Drouin was a third overall pick. At some point, you're like, that guy's, I don't care where he got drafted. I'm just using him as an example. I know he looks okay in Colorado.
Okay.
But I think at some point, Kakko he's a third line player. Doesn't matter if he shouldn't have gone second overall, I think is the way you reflect on it.
I mean, at the time, people were talking about him like he was going to score a ton of goals.
Everyone that goes second overall, though. You see the draft coverage. Some guy that goes 148th, he's compared to Bobby Orr. You know what I mean? That's what it always is. This kid, what a steal. This guy's going to be unbelievable. I think he'll score 50 one day. That's just the way
I just wonder, when does it get to you just change the coach? Because, how many of these other guys can you actually trade? It's nice to come out and say, yeah, we want to trade this guy. It's look at his contract. Look at his age. Yeah, that's not happening.
Yeah, but is it fair to the coach? That's at some point you're like, is it the coach's fault that he can't get these guys going?
Often isn't, right?
Are they as fast as they were? I watch them. They don't look like they're flying around the ice. Then they've signed their goaltender to a massive deal, which I think he's a really good goalie, obviously. But this team, I at times I read comments or I talk to friends who are like, this Rangers team has done so well. What have they done?
They won the President's Trophy.
President's Trophy. That doesn't mean Stanley Cup. It's. I don't want to dismiss it, but they haven't won anything. This isn't like they're breaking up the Tampa Bay Lightning from, 4 or 5 years ago, or the Avalanche or the Blackhawks or the Kings. They're not dismantling a juggernaut that's just rolled over teams for, 2-3 years, Jonas. This is a team that, they won the President's Trophy, but if you watched them in the playoffs last year, what's the word? I would use the word soft or not competitive enough. That's how I define them in their playoffs last year. So, what is Chris Drury dismantling? What is everybody upset about? You haven't really won anything as a group.
It's a very good question, especially when you consider how good that goalie is and how much he can mask and what Shesterkin has done. Like when they were in the conference final a couple of years ago, that was his MVP year. Like he was so good. I'm sure if you went back and looked at it, was it just him? Like I'm sure other players contributed. Adam Fox is a really good player. Panarin's a really good player. Vinny Trocheck's a big game player, and he had a good playoff last year. Zibanejad, when he's in the mood or is feeling it and confident, he's a good player. But Struddy makes a good point. I mean, ultimately, you have a world-class goaltender and then a team that has talented players, but they haven't actually accomplished anything. If we're talking about the ultimate goal, like a Florida, like a Tampa, like a Pittsburgh.
See, what's interesting to me with what they've done is I know you, Hayes, I'm sure Struddy agrees. We've looked at the team here and we'd be like, they should probably take like a little bit of a tougher stance with some of these issues and not just kind of let things be. And in New York, they've kind of like taken a blowtorch to everything, like in the summer with Barclay Goodrow, the reports, you know what I mean? Like they've been a little bit more just burn everything down, and it's not like that works either. Maybe there's a middle ground that you have to take, like Tampa did with some of what they did. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
possibly.
Like I played with Chris Drury, guys. I played with him for a couple of years, and super nice guy. But everything he's ever touched, he's won. Right? He's won.
Right.
As a player, he's won. He won as a little. I don't know if you guys know this. He was a Little League World Series champion. He won as a pitcher. And he was just throwing darts, I guess, in there, So this guy is a winner. So I think that he is programmed to win. And if he doesn't think that this team is ready to win, he's going to make changes. And he foreshadowed this, in the offseason. We heard the reports about Chuba. Then you mentioned the Barclay Goodrow. What did he have? 3 years left on his deal, and they put him on waivers.
But can you do business that way continually without getting this? I don't know that you can.
Well, that's a fair point, but maybe he feels that some pieces aren't going to help him win, so we'll move them out and try to find something that does help us more.
Well, he's also got a lunatic owner down there that doesn't help, right? James
Very
Dolan.
Factor, yeah.
Although, to my knowledge, James Dolan has never resorted to scouting reports based on video games, which is a story that has come out of The Athletic today. Diana Rossini and others reporting on Woody Johnson, the owner of the New York Jets. And my initial reaction to this was that it has to be fake. It can't actually be real. And then the more I thought about it throughout the day, this is probably exactly what I would expect out of a guy like Woody Johnson, the owner of the Jets, who is a disaster. And look at his team. Outside of the Sabres, who have missed the playoffs more than any other team in pro sports in North America, the second team with the longest drought is the New York Jets. And I think you always start at the top. You always look at the top, and it's Woody Johnson. That's why he's firing GMs midseason, coaches midseason, trying to get Aaron Rodgers in here, and you see how the way it plays out. So in The Athletic today, they are reporting a couple of different things. First and foremost, the former GM, Joe Douglas, I guess had spoken to somebody, I was supposed to be off the record, saying that he basically is taking orders from teenagers and that Woody Johnson's teenage sons have legit power within that organization. So the teenage kids are walking around saying, I want this guy. What's your draft board?
This guy sucks.
That guy sucks, which is a terrifying proposition, but also explains a lot. But that's just the beginning of it. The biggest story that came out of this in terms of a news headline, you couldn't purchase a better line to get people to click on your story. Apparently, according to Rossini, The Athletic, and others, Woody Johnson declined to trade for Jerry Jeudy. Now, Jeudy was originally in Denver. Now he's in Cleveland. He just passed 1,000 yards receiving. We saw him a couple of weeks ago, where, what do you have, 2 or 3 touchdowns and like 250 yards receiving or whatever. Guy's been one of the 5 or 6 best wideouts in the league this year, and he's young and in his prime. Woody Johnson told his team to decline the trade because Judy's Madden rating was too low.
How do you like his awareness rating, whatever that is?
Again, that's how it all. I don't even know what his number was in the game. I also find it impossible to believe that Woody Johnson actually knew it This screams the kids went to him and said, Jeudy stinks. I had him in franchise mode. He killed me. He's got no breakaway speed. His yards after the catch in the game suck. All the announcers chirp him. Like, that's what it sounds like. It sounds like Jerry Jeudy maybe or maybe not I can't say he got lucky because he's in Cleveland. You got to be careful. It's not like he's, in
Deshaun Watson.
Yeah, he's not in Green Bay or something like that. The guy's in Cleveland. But he almost became a New York Jet if it weren't for Woody Johnson finding out that his Madden rating was too low. And I don't know how you guys feel about that. Struddy, you've been in video games before. You've played for owners before. How would you respond if you found out that your owner took issue with your rating in EA Sports and their NHL game?
Well, if owners went off my rating, I probably would never played in the NHL. So I don't think that my owners actually looked at it. But I just, and I'm not challenging, the reports or the reporters, but I can't imagine that was the reason. Maybe there is like something else and said, oh, by the way, also we heard that his rating's low on Madden, because that just seems like something out of a TV show or a movie where you're just like, making things up and trying to make it a fantasy league. So I as a player would be really frustrated to hear if this was in fact 100% the first reason. I'd be like, who's running my team? Like, what do you think Aaron Rodgers says? And when he's at or near the end of his career, when he hears that this is why he didn't, have this player, I just, as a player, I just be like, who's running this?
I know.
This is not for me. And then potential free agents might be the same thing, Jonas.
You'd have to demand some answers. Wouldn't you? Like, wouldn't you have the right to...
Aaron Rodgers demands some answers?
Here's the thing, though. Aaron Rodgers now, if he gets cut by this guy...
He becomes the hero?
No, I think it's even more embarrassing for him. If Woody Johnson looks at you and goes, you stink...
Well, did you see that? There was that in the story where it came out after, I think, Robert Saleh was fired, or maybe it was after the GM was fired, that Woody Johnson was talking about maybe benching Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah, he was.
And I think they said in the story, like, it was just kind of something he was floating out there to kind of like poke and prod. And it's like, really?
Yeah, allegedly or reportedly that as of like week 4, week 5, he was going to Douglas and Saleh saying, you got to sit this guy, which is, again, crazy considering all you've invested in Aaron Rodgers. But it speaks to just a complete gong show. And it's a perfect explanation of why the Jets are the Jets. Like, sometimes it's just not that complicated. And I've talked about them extensively. They don't play here. They're not my team. Yet I'm fascinated with them because they are such a debacle. Yet, again, it's not always about drafting. It's not always about player development. It's not always about game planning. It's not always about what you can go down the list. A lot of times it is very simple. Who is the owner? That will explain it. That's all you need to know. And Woody Johnson is the owner. You can't win if that guy's running the show.
Shorty, I actually bet that is what happened. Like, they went to the GM went to the owner and was like, we're going to trade for Jerry Jeudy. Woody's probably walking around the house. He's like, we're going to get Jerry Jeudy. And the kids are like, no.
Yeah, he sucks.
He sucks. And then he gets back on the phone. He's like, don't make that trade.
Yeah, I just heard he's got a 74 rating and, like whatever. Exactly. He's got all these intangible ratings that I don't like. Madden's saying he's not great in the room. I don't want him in my room because Madden claims that he's not great in the room.
Did you guys watch the show Succession? Have you seen Succession?
Yes, I have, yeah.
Great show. That's
Very
where my
show.
Mind wanders with something like this.
Right, but here's where I push back on that. Okay. Woody Johnson.
He's not Logan Roy?
He's not Logan Roy.
You're right.
Right? He is not a serious person.
You're right.
Like, Woody would have to include himself in that whole speech.
I like that.
Right? Like, none of them are serious people. But again, I can't sit here and blame teenagers either. Like, what the hell would they know? Like, the idea that teenagers
But the fact that, like, they're being led in the dressing room and, like, they're kind of making fun of players, like, come on.
But that's what it speaks to the culture and the fact that if you're the owner, you can basically do anything. And you just...
Which isn't always good.
It's never good, Struddy. When would it ever be a positive?
There needs to be some separation there between the owners and the manager. I know you own the team, but hire someone you can check in. But offering advice isn't ideal. I never really understood that when you hear this owner's meddling in it. Like, that's not really your core business. You might make money off it. Doesn't mean you're an expert in said player acquisition in this example.
Look at Jerry Jones. Look at
literally like the GM.
James Dolan.
Yeah.
Right? Like
I mean, Donald Sterling is the worst one.
yeah, I mean, he was obviously a disaster, and he was cheap, and he wouldn't spend money, and that's another thing. It's not always about money. Sometimes it is. Sometimes you look at owners. David Tepper, the owner of the Carolina Panthers, that guy's a mess. By all accounts, he was involved in C.J. Stroud or Bryce Young, and he was pushing. Madden was telling him Bryce Young was the guy. It's crushing. Yet there's nothing you can do unless you want to quit. If you're the GM, there's nothing you can do. Can't fight back. You can't demand anything. If the owner says this is what you're doing, you're going to do it. And every GM, and we've heard them all say, I want full autonomy. I'm only coming there as long as I get to do whatever I want. Even they know there's no such thing. There's no such thing as full autonomy. At some point, an owner, whether it's a solo owner or a conglomerate, someone's going to make some request that wouldn't fall in line with your ethics or what you want to do with your business, but you're going to have to bend a little bit.
And then you kind of have to wear it?
Yeah.
Well, it's just, again, it may not even be a player personnel thing, Strudwick. It could be as simple as the owner called and said, his kid's coming down and he wants to hang out in the room. He's going to have to come down. What are you going to say, no?
No.
But
let's say this, guys. If we were owners of the team, would we not involve ourselves in some decisions?
I'd be right in there on Madden, NHL, NBA 2K, or whatever it is.
You own the team, so you're going to meddle a little bit. But I think I know we all know a little bit more about hockey than we do about football. But I would be more interested. Let's spend more money on drafting, on developing. Like I'd be, those big decisions. Do we sign whoever? Kachuk tomorrow. I'm like, okay, I'll trust you, but these are the types of things I value. I think as an owner, but that's why you pay these guys to make these big decisions. And yet, I still would be interested. What's the trade? Hey, what's the rumors? What are the rumors out there? Fill me in.
Well, I'd want to know too, and I'd want to feel like I was involved. Yet, I'd like to believe I'd have the common sense to know that I can't make the ultimate decision on the scouting process. I think what's understandable, as much as fans might not like it is a business, and there are going to be owners that are going to say no to money being available to you. That's different, right? Like, I can reason with that. I may not love it, but I get it if an owner goes, I can't give you the $700 million for that guy. Like, I can't get there for you. Sorry, you can't get Ohtani. Maybe you weren't going to get him anyway, but I can't give you the $700 million. Or you're asking for a little bit more budget to go get help in this certain area. Can't give it to you because our spreadsheets are saying we're not going to reach that point. That I can reason with. But this is totally different. This is, hey, Woody, we've got an idea here. Jerry Jeudy's a real stud that's going to break out for us. We can get him. And Woody Johnson saying, let me get back to you. The game's paused. I'm going to check on his rating on Madden.
You're right. It wasn't he didn't check on it. It's probably the kids just.
I would assume his kids said, "Dude, he stinks in Madden."
And then what happens? They need they decide they need a receiver, and then they trade for Devontae Adams, and then that doesn't work.
They probably pay more than they would have had to pay
and
anyway.
He's older,
and now Judy's in his prime, and he's popping, and he's making it work in Cleveland. Welcome to the National Football League. All right, Luke Wilson will join us in studio. Strutter Dud is coming up later this afternoon. We've got a list coming up as well. A little bit later, we've got Pierre LeBrun just after 5 o'clock. Craig Button still to come. Overdrive continues. TSN 1050 and on TSN 4. All right, we've sent Al's brother out somewhere in the city with a pair of Leaf tickets, and you have to guess where he's hiding for your chance to win them. I guess this is our final clue of the week, because as of tomorrow, you need to listen for the cue to call, and then if you know where Al's brother is, you could win a pair of tickets. Big ones, too, on Monday. Leafs Jets, 2 p.m. puck drop. I love that. Next gen game. All right, you guys ready to hear from Al's brother and his final clue of the week?
Let's do it.
Hey, OverDrive fans, it's Thursday, and it's time for your final clue to find out where is Al's brother for those Leafs and Jets tickets on December 23rd, the final game before the Christmas holidays. And I'm feeling some pressure to get me some Christmas gifts and get that shopping all finished up, because I'm staring at a big countdown to Christmas sign right now.
All right, there you go. Tune in tomorrow, and the first caller through with the correct location will win a pair of tickets to see, again, the Leafs Jets, December 23rd. Find Al's brother, brought to you by McAlpine Ford in Aurora. Our family, the Ford family, and you. Full details at tsn1050.ca. So Leafs coming off a win last night. You've got Boston in Edmonton tonight, Strud, and Zach Hyman's going to play. See his face today down at pregame? It was... it's mashed, man. Like it's a disaster. He's got, I don't know if his nose is broken. It looks like
They had to break it back, I guess.
Yeah, break his nose back, and then look at his eyes, and he's going to play tonight.
Crazy.
And he's a tough customer.
Who do you think
man.
is tougher, you or Hyman for playing today?
I would say me for battling through you two also, right? Like he gets to play with McDavid and Draisaitl. I'm stuck with you two guys.
We're kind of the McDavid and
You guys are the
What are you
McDavid and
talking about?
Draisaitl. Okay. Well, then
Hyman's his nose looked like a baked potato. It
I
was
know.
so big. How did he come back and play that game? Like, how is he breathing? You couldn't breathe through your nose.
it looks so nasty too, and it was cut. It was cut, right, Strud? So if anything touched it, it would have been so painful.
And he almost scored.
Yeah, nice guy. I'll bet you he scores tonight. I wouldn't be surprised at all.
Right.
Probably off his face and in.
Oh.
That would be such a Hyman goal. I'm calling it right here, right now. Hour 2 coming up. Pierre LeBrun will join us. Luke Wilson in studio. Al's brother coming along for the ride as well. Hayes and Bro on the clock for the Thursday nighter tonight. Hour 2 up next. Overdrive continues. TSN 1050 and on the TSN app.